Right, well, the City of Cape Town is hosting the Housing Investment Connect Conference in Century City. The event is aimed at accelerating affordable housing through private sector investments and partnerships. Let's cross back to SABC News reporter Naledi Mabitsela-Ngcobo for the latest coming from there. Naledi, good morning once again.
Good morning, Leanne. We are certainly back at the Housing Investment Connect here happening in Century City, where, of course, the city is hosting a number of stakeholders, including financiers, investors, property developers, and other actors within the built environment, all here to discuss the opportunities for investing in affordable housing. Of course, we know it remains a contentious issue whereby most residents are saying it's simply unaffordable to have a property, own a property, or even rent in Cape Town. But of course, we do have financiers that have been identified as being strategic partners in developing housing, affordable housing in the city. Joining me now is Mr. Steve Coast, who is an F&B housing property developer and financier. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Steve. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is that financiers, the role that financiers play in developing affordable housing in Cape Town?
Thanks so much. It's good to be here. So, from the finance perspective, we obviously have funds which we invest for developments, which result in either the sale or the long-term holding of rental stock, generating rentals for the developers or generating sales which transfer in. And I think what's unique about today's session is that the City of Cape Town is the one that's proactively coming forward with their identified land opportunities, their public land opportunities which require development to provide for housing needs, for private development, for public interest requirements, affordable housing targets being met. And I think finding innovative ways that we can meet public investment and public interest requirements by collaborating in terms of private funding and private controls and public regulations, public policies, public enabling investments. That's what's different now. It's unusual to have a municipality coming forward with pre-identified opportunities. So we're very excited for those opportunities to put our heads together. And it's also interesting to see that we know so many of these people behind these initiatives 20, 30, 35 years ago from university days, and we've all gone in our own directions, and now it's coming back together. So I think it's quite unique to have all learned the skills and the constraints and the challenges that we've been experiencing in meeting the housing requirement and finding new energy and new ways collaboratively to meet those finance needs and development.
I hear you speaking a lot about collaboration, so I'm taking it that partnership between the private sector and the private sector, the public and private sector, is going to be really important in driving affordable housing. What are the opportunities that you think are there for residents particularly, whether it be job opportunities? What do you think an initiative like this really means for the actual resident and the ordinary Cape Townian?
Well, if we're talking about affordable housing and looking at that angle, then obviously shelter and housing security and housing investment and closer to amenities, living in areas that are not miles out with expensive public transport costs, expensive costs for an informal house. So obviously those are key aspects, but there's also the employment generation from delivering these houses. And I would say we need to look at new ways of recognizing the opportunities, not just getting a house as a house ownership and not just renting a property, but perhaps models in between where one rents, builds up a credit track record from being a tenant and then translates it into owning the property. So those are three distinct areas, I think, that offer great opportunities.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot about the issue of tourism gentrification, where we're seeing a lot more wealthier individuals who are coming from the Europes and the Americas having a lot more access. So how do we level the playing field, but particularly from a financier like yourself? How do you make sure that there's equity in this system?
I think that, first of all, City of Cape Town or the institutional framework which supports the development opportunities needs to be very clear about what kinds of rights and, I guess, opportunities exist in different areas. And City of Cape Town's taken maybe even a bit of noise about insisting that there are opportunities in inner cities or around inner cities in well-to-do areas that don't just get eaten up by gentrification. And I think it's quite important, if you look at the spatial development framework of the City of Cape Town and the the provincial frameworks. They talk about bringing opportunities and housing closer to existing areas. And I think that is something that the old historical models where new housing areas were further and further and further away from areas of opportunity, retail, schooling, work opportunities, they need to really be as close as possible. And I think that's what the City of Cape Town is trying to get right, which directly overrules the gentrification problem.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. That is an F&B housing financier, Mr. Steve Koest, saying that the city is really taking matters into its own hands and in making initiatives whereby it's producing a conducive environment for the private sector to actually invest in affordable housing, saying that this will come to multiple opportunities with residents of Cape Town being able to reap the benefits, while investors are also in line to also access a lot of that partnership opportunities that exist. And so we look forward to hear more about what kind of opportunities lie in terms of creating affordable housing in Cape Town. The conference continues and we'll be bringing you a lot more from these particular engagements. But for now, it's back to you in studio.
All right, thanks very much, Naledi. And yeah, enjoy the day there. We'll check in with you throughout as things start happening.